good podcast listeners. It's another episode of Cruising with the Coaches, a conversation with Julie and Lee, coming right back at you. In this episode, we talk about boundaries, what they are, how important they are, and how to make one. Stay tuned, that's coming up next. Hey folks, welcome back from that short break. We love having the Live All Good podcast listeners tune in to our new series, Cruising with the Coaches, a conversation with Julie and Lee. And of course, I am here with, I'm Lee, so I have to be here with Julie, right?
Yes.
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Doing good. Just trucking along and letting each day be what it's going to be. And I can't complain. So there you go.
There you go. So how'd you do some homework?
Well, let's see. What did I do? I actually went to the gym for my homework. So that was my self-care.
Awesome.
But what was yours? How was your homework?
I actually have managed to walk every night. So
Nice. And folks, don't forget, if you didn't do the homework, I'm guessing you're going to have to listen to the last episode to find out what the homework was. And then we'd like to hear from you what you did. And just a hint, the homework was one or two things for self-care. That way you don't have to fast forward and, we got you.
Yeah, we want them to listen to the whole thing, right? So
right. We got you covered. So along the lines of self-care is one pretty important thing that really helps bind it together, maybe, or helps protect self-care. That's probably even a better way to say it.
Yeah, I like that, protection. Yep.
Yeah. And that is the word boundaries. So it's not just a word, obviously. It is an act of creating a space so that you can be your best self, whatever that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just want to jump in here. And what is an example, Julie, that you can share of what a boundary looks like to you, or what a boundary and what some of the boundaries are that you may or may not have had in the past or now? What does that look like for you?
Well, okay, so I'll share what is a silly boundary for me, but it helps me.
Uh-oh.
Okay. It's not a
As long as it's not a boundary of not recording podcasts.
Yeah, no, it's a very silly one, but it helps me. I will tell you that I am an introvert, okay? But my job requires me to be an extrovert. So when I am at work, I'm on 100% of the time, okay? So when I come home from work, it's not that I don't say hello, but I usually go immediately to my bedroom and get in my relaxed clothes and chill for a minute. So the kids know that that's like my boundary. I need that 20 minutes to decompress.
Sure.
And so they know I'm a better mom for it. Um, they know the answer to whatever question they may have will probably be a yes if they give me that 20 minutes.
And it's probably going to be a no if they don't.
Exactly. And so it's a mutual respect. They understand that boundary. They know the second I get home is not the time to ask me for something. Even if it's what's for dinner, it's just give me.
That can probably be the worst one. They might not eat if they ask that when you're walking in the door.
Exactly. So I mean, while it's a silly boundary, it is a boundary of mine. It's just I need this 20 minutes. I need this 20 minutes to decompress because I understand that piece of me that I am an introvert and that I have to be, I don't want to say someone else, but sometimes it feels that way.
Right.
But I have to be on. And so I need that moment to kind of come off of that and then get to be myself, and then it's just like, okay, then it's a more, easy breezy, a happy mom, happy house, so
Sure, yeah, there you go, right? Well, and thanks for sharing because dare we say that that's not a silly boundary, right? It's
Right.
not silly at all, and we want people to know that. Hey, that's a great example because someone might be like, dude, you know what? No, your kids are all important. Your kids are this, and I'm sure they are, right?
They are.
But like you said, if they ask you something, especially unless someone's eyeballs hanging out, right?
Right.
Or unless someone's arm is across the room and they're like, "Yo, I need to go to the doctor to get this reattached," that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that something might be able to wait for you to be able to recharge, right? Than
Exactly.
that. And like you said, it's mutual respect, and so while it seems like it's something that is simple or something that other moms might look at you and be like, "Oh my gosh, what? You tell your kids don't talk to me for 20 minutes?"
Right.
Well, that's not exactly what you said, but the important part of the takeaway is it's a necessary boundary,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Your kids are, I'm sure, important to you, and they have 24/7 access to you, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Everybody doesn't have that. But at the same time, you recognize how and what is going to make you be the best mom you can be for them.
Exactly.
And that's why that boundary is super important. You
Mhm.
know, that's a great example of a boundary. Um, I'm trying to think of like the boundaries in my world, and one boundary that I thought about is having started this whole journey of coaching, right?
Mhm.
And you have clients, and you're always connecting with people, and I really had to take this part seriously because you're definitely helping people become better versions of themselves, right? They're not broken, but you're enhancing what is already there, or
Correct.
you're helping uncover what they've buried for so long. But the one of the crucial points of that, and it's very similar to what you said about being on at work, right?
Mhm.
Unless a client is in deep, deep crisis, which is probably beyond my expertise anyhow, you know, they don't get 24/7 access to me. And so that boundary is set in the beginning when, hey, if you have a question, if you're a client of mine and you have a question, or if you have a concern, or if there's something going on, you can definitely email me. You can text me, and I will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, you know?
Mhm.
And I think that is a crucial boundary to have because if I don't separate that, if I just say, hey, yeah, call me anytime, yeah, email me anytime, and have this expectation of I will immediately respond. Well, what if I'm doing something, again, self-care for myself? What if I'm with my family? What if it's not even a day where I'm available for coaching? Well, then that boundary gets crossed, and the expectation becomes that I'm immediately available 24/7.
Right.
And that's not the case. Um, Gratefully and thankfully, no clients have ever breached that boundary, and that's cool. Um, and even I think that ties into personal boundaries too, right? Not everybody should have 24/7 access to me.
Right. Right.
There are those who do, but not everybody should.
Yeah.
And being able to determine that, and being okay with that, and letting some people know, hey, I'll get back to you tomorrow, or no, I don't have my phone on me right now. No, I'm not looking for uh, a message from you, or to looking to send one to you.
Right.
It's so boundaries are definitely important.
They
You know,
are. They are. I mean,
yeah.
especially with the pandemic itself, because when people were working from home, you might have the manager who thinks, okay, well, I have access to you all the time now, you know?
Sure.
And
Sure.
and that's difficult because if you are in your home setting, it's an invasion, is it not? I mean, if it's
Mhm.
after 5 o'clock and, I shouldn't say after 5 o'clock, but out of
Well, no, yeah,
the
yeah.
parameters of what is your work hours, because I know
Right.
everybody has different work hours.
Right.
But,
Right.
that was something I myself, professionally had to say, okay, now there's no such thing as a philanthropic emergency, people. So,
Absolutely correct.
you know,
Absolutely correct.
and so it is like, if you don't hear from me, the evening of, obviously, you'll hear from me the first thing the next day,
Right.
and it took a while to, boundaries aren't easy. It's like you have to start realizing, okay, this is affecting me in a way that I am not comfortable with. So let me do this and see if I can change it. And
That's so
so,
critical. Yeah.
yeah. And then, you do have that temporary phase where there's guilt, where
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, did I just say I wasn't going to answer a phone call or an email after five
Right.
o'clock? Like, is this person going to be angry with me? And just learning how to let that go and just say, you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
It's gonna be okay. Yeah.
yeah. And, conditioning folks to understand that. And
Mm,
eventually they get it, you know.
mhm.
But I mean, I
Well,
will tell you, I had an individual who would literally email me an hour later, text me, 10 minutes later, call me. And I'm like, oh, oh, oh. So, yeah.
They had to learn the boundary.
Yes.
Well, I love what you said talking about working from home and the change that that brought on. And by the way, I loved the there is no such thing as a philanthropic emergency.
There there isn't. There isn't.
You, you mean what? There's not? No.
No,
Say it
no.
isn't so.
Someone isn't gonna say, "I have to give you this $1,000 right now."
I
So,
totally wish that was a thing,
I
you
know.
know?
Oh.
Um, but talking about the whole new dynamic of working from home and talking and then relating that to boundaries.
Mhm.
Wow, not just from your, like you said, your perspective of maybe a manager and the people they manage, but you are now in a physical space that once helped create a boundary between your profession and being at home. And
Exactly.
so if and boy, if your kids were remote learning
Oh,
also,
Lord, yes.
so I mean, I'm literally picturing, like, you see the picture of neurons firing in a brain, right?
Mhm.
Though that's what it looks like to me, with the amount of boundaries that became crossed or blurred,
Exactly.
because now everybody is in one space but has to do something different and has to be um where, like you said, you're on for work, right?
Right?
So there's work has to be done, but then there's school that has to be done, and we're not always completely 100% the same as we are at work or at home or at school. And
Mhm.
so just the amount of boundaries that got crossed or blurred or even redrawn is amazing. Um, Hopefully, those of you listening have been able to manage that and still like each other.
Yes. Yes.
I tell people all the time, I'm definitely blessed because as much as we've had to do things from home, and while I'm one of those that could not work from home, so I had to go in and to the job that pays the bills and go into the office. But like, we've come out on the other side of this, or at least come through this so far, and still like each other. You
Mhm.
know, yeah, yes, we love each other, and like we talked about your kids, right?
Mhm.
You love them, of course, but with those boundaries, if they had not been set, if they had not been put out there, you might not like them. right now.
Exactly. Yeah, and I wanna
And
like them.
right, right, and so man, like everybody in my household, and again, we have we live in the city, we live at a bit of a smaller house, so there's definitely restrictions. uh like you can't get away from somebody either without
Mhm.
leaving the house. But oh wait, can't leave the house. Or I mean, you can, but so yeah, boundaries are super important. And man, just that threw everybody for a loop.
Yeah.
So yeah, being able to say, hey, okay, this is a dedicated space for, at least in my household, this is a dedicated space for your school. This is this office, this is dedicated for you to do your job. Okay, I will take this space here. At least being able to separate those things kind of
Mhm.
helped also, set some physical boundaries of what would not be broken and what would be allowable to be flexible, you know
Right.
now that actually brings me to another point. Some boundaries, or let me, and you know what, let me pose this as a question to you.
Okay.
um are boundaries flexible, or are they meant to be rigid?
I will tell you, in our household, they are flexible.
Hmm.
I am, very understanding in the fact that, I guess for like, the kids are just they all have different personalities, okay?
Sure.
And I have one child who her boundaries may be very rigid, you know? And I will tell you they are. But, like, my middle child, she's very just, fluid. She's just like, "Yeah, it might be this way this day, it might be another way a different day." And then, my son has absolutely no boundaries. Um, but you have to be flexible, and I'd have to say, they don't there are probably some boundaries that need to be rigid in
Mm,
different things that
mm,
you come across in your life, you know what I mean? But,
sure, sure.
I would say in my household, our boundaries are very flexible.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, right? I
Yeah.
think there are some boundaries that are non-negotiable,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Some of those things have to be rigid,
Mhm.
but some boundaries, yes, can be flexible based on personality, based on situation, based on timing. Um, the boundary can be a fluid, flexible, moving thing to accommodate any changes. Because what think about, um, like steel,
Mhm.
right? Steel is very rigid, and it's meant to build stuff and solidify things. But if it bends too much, it breaks,
Correct.
right? So
Yeah.
if you have a rigid boundary that doesn't need to be rigid, it potentially could get broken, and that's probably worse, because then that whole gray area filters in, you know,
Correct, correct.
and
And
no
then
one knows what to expect.
right, and then not only you have to mention the fact that, if a boundary is broken, it
Mhm.
may be viewed as a form of disrespect.
Mm,
So, you definitely don't want you don't want you wanna respect everybody's boundaries, I guess
mm,
is the best way I could say that. So, the last thing you really wanna do is intentionally break a
mm.
boundary of someone's because
Uh,
everybody's
yeah,
boundaries are different.
absolutely. Yes, you do not want to intentionally break a
Correct,
boundary. Yeah,
correct.
very very well said. Very well
Yeah.
said. Cool. All right. Well, at this point in the program, folks, got to pay the bills, so we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll continue discussing boundaries and talk about even how to set some boundaries. All right. We'll be right back in a few short seconds. All right, folks. Welcome back from that short break. Wow. We've had an interesting discussion about boundaries so far and what that looks like, why they're important. Um, yeah, Julie, anything you want to add from about what we were talking about before? Just about boundaries.
I mean, just to know that they're healthy, there's nothing wrong with them. I think there's uh, some folks who think a boundary means immediately what I cannot do,
Mm,
and understanding that it's not really what you cannot do, it's what another individual needs.
mm, yeah, I like that. Very well put. It's what another individual needs,
Hmm.
especially to be themselves and to be
Exactly.
their best self. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to share. Um, I want to share this. I'd seen an Instagram post and I'd used it in a post of mine, I think. But it was this person on Instagram was specifically talking about toxic relationships, right? And so it went something to the effect of um, she was saying that weak-minded or women who stay in who intentionally stay in toxic relationships are weak-minded, and she got a lot of clapback and some comments about, no, those women aren't weak-minded, they're just not as strong. And she was like, right, weak-minded. I was like, oh, okay, where's the rest of this going? Yeah. And so what she said was, uh you know you you can't heal from any trauma or any of the toxicity in that relationship if you're staying in it, if you're choosing to stay in it. And she eloquently used some choice words to say that if you keep touching the stove, your burn will never heal. And I was like, wow, that's spot on. And so I think that that talks about again. She didn't use boundaries or anything like that in her Instagram post, but it speaks very highly, very vividly to boundaries, right? If and this is just not about women or toxic relationships at all, but in that particular instance that she's talking about, if you don't verbally or even just talk about, that's not okay. You cannot do X, Y, and Z if you don't set that boundary. And this individual, right? And again, men and women, if they keep taking and taking,
Hmm.
they're gonna end up steamrolling you.
Right.
And there's no boundaries in that. And that becomes a one-sided toxic relationship, you know? So boundaries are super critical. And yes, while it does require some courage, it does require some mental strength. It requires honesty and communication in order to set the boundaries. It's ultimately your path and what's best for you, right?
Right.
And if that other person is not willing to respect those boundaries, run.
Right.
Go. I mean, but yeah, not necessarily run,
Um,
but
okay,
wow, it
get to stepping. How about that? Would that
yeah, yeah. Okay, all right, fair enough. Get to stepping, yeah, yeah. Get the hell out.
right?
But yeah, that's man. Boundaries are super important for your mental health, for your physical health. Yeah, it's critical. It's critical.
It is.
So yeah, I want to go ahead and pose a question before we get to our homework here. But so what is a way that you would advise somebody or you would tell somebody to set a boundary?
Well, I would start with, recognizing what it is, recognizing the event that is occurring that is overwhelming you.
Mm,
Okay. And then once you're able to recognize that, like I was saying, about coming home and, the immediate questions, and it's like, oh my God, I would find myself saying things that I couldn't take back because I didn't have the opportunity to, relax kind of a
mm,
thing. And
mhm.
so just recognizing the event that is making you feel overwhelmed. And then once you've recognized that, communicate it. 'cause that's the other thing, people can't understand what your boundary is or what your triggers are if you're not willing to express that to them.
Mm,
I
that's
mean,
super important.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I know we had talked about triggers in an episode or two before, but yeah, that comes up, right?
Mhm.
If you don't know, if you don't even recognize your own triggers, first of all,
Right.
then you're not going to be able to even set a boundary that's going to help protect you from getting triggered. So
Correct,
so you
correct.
definitely have to be aware of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Y-
then
Oh, go ahead.
and
Yeah, yeah.
and and then even once you've communicated it, understanding, that other person has a perspective on what it is you're setting a boundary up to, you know, because just because you're saying you need this, they also have to understand how to give it to you, as
Mhm.
well as understand how it affects them.
Yes, yes. Man, I love the way you said that because that immediately leads me to this. Um, I've used this technique, or actually, I typed it up, but I've used it with several clients, right? And it never dawned on me that it was exactly what you're talking about, setting boundaries. It's something that I call how to have a challenging conversation, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But it so typically when you are asking someone for what you need, trying to create this boundary, the other person is perceiving a loss, right? If you are gaining something, then they think they're losing something.
Correct.
And the technique of this having this challenging conversation is being able to approach the subject in a way where I'm asking for what I need, and by you helping me achieve that, these are the ways that you are going to benefit and win from that also.
Yep.
Now, obviously it's much easier said than done.
Right.
but I think that is a critical technique in setting boundaries,
It is.
right?
Mhm.
Being able to say what you need, because we can't do it ourselves, right?
Right.
But also helping that person understand that they're not losing something,
Right.
that they are actually going to benefit and gain something by helping you get what you need.
Yep. So you have to create a win-win situation.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And like in some of the coaching that I've done, I've seen that come up time and time again, where the clients didn't even realize that they weren't asking for what they needed. They expected that other person to well, they should know. And you're
Right.
like, well, how did they know? Did you tell them? Well, I said that. Hold on.
But what did you really say?
Right, right. Did you tell them, hey, I need that 20 minutes when I walk in the door
Mhm.
because I need to decompress. And if I decompress, I will be willing to answer anything you say. I'll be much happier around you. We can talk about whatever. Like, yeah, that's the thing, right? You
Right.
have to be able to say that.
Right.
So that is, man, what I never really thought about the challenging conversations that I've used with clients about boundaries until you said that. You
Yeah.
know, that's
Because
so critical.
it is, it's just you can't assume that by delivering your message, the person is just going to easily accept it.
Right,
It
right.
it's just not logical. So
Well, and also, go ahead. I'm sorry, didn't mean to
no,
cut you off.
I'm just saying, like you said earlier, it can't be a one-sided benefit. You have to discuss
Mhm.
what the benefits are gonna be for both of you.
Yep, yep. And what's even more difficult about that is that we're so conditioned to think that, well, wait, if someone is getting what they want, that means I'm going to be losing something. We're
Right.
conditioned to think that way in such
Mhm.
a binary way of, well, if I'm not winning, then I'm losing.
Right, right,
And that's not always the case. There is a way when we're talking about humans, right? We're not talking about the game or this, and but there's a way for both of you to benefit.
Right.
or for the best case scenario for everyone, you know? So maybe setting that boundary is, hey, you know, I need this. And if I get this, if I get my 1 hour in the gym every Saturday, right?
Mhm.
During the week, what can I do so that you get your 1 hour walk, or that so that you get the 2 hours of whatever you need so that I can get that 1 hour. That's the also a flexible boundary, right?
Right.
Because that's the give and take.
Correct.
So that's what we're talking about when you're setting that boundary, setting the expectation that everyone will benefit from it,
Right.
you know?
Because I mean, I believe what you have to do when you end that conversation is you have to both see value in that boundary.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And it might take a little bit of communication and conversation to get to that point. It might take that to so that everybody can see the value that they're going to get.
Right.
Absolutely. So homework for this week. What should we do? Julie, what do you think? What do you think?
I don't know. I think we should have folks set a boundary.
Oh, I
Yeah.
like I
Right?
like it. Sounds good. Sounds good. So everybody listening, you know, and you know what? Even if you're listening and you are pretty good with boundaries, okay, we want you to reach out to someone who you think is not so good at having boundaries. How about that?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
And share this with them too. So until the next episode, we want you to be aware, take a look at what goes on in your daily life, right? What goes on at work, what goes on in your home life, relationships, whatever. How is that working for you?
Yep.
Are you getting are you truly getting what you need, even if you think you've asked for it, right? So be aware of it, examine it, explore it, and then once you've done that, if you need to r- redistribute the boundary, right, redraw the boundary, maybe it's a new boundary that needs to be created. We want to make sure you're doing it also from a place of love, right? this,
Absolutely.
this is this is not a demand that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But but we want you to go ahead, take a look at what you got going on, and see if you need to set some new boundaries, and see how that's going to benefit you and the people you're setting the boundaries with. I also Here's a bonus for the homework.
Ooh.
Yeah, right, right. Are you respecting other people's boundaries also?
Ooh.
We just want to make sure we put that out there, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we had an episode on self-care. We've talked about that and how it deals and how it folds into boundaries. But I think it's important to also look at, are you respecting other people's boundaries as well? So, of course, we'd like to hear from you guys. Please reach out and let us know how your boundary setting is going, if you're respecting other people's boundaries, and if not, what are you doing about it? What action are you taking to correct those things?
Excellent.
Another great
Another
episode.
one. Yay. Yeah.
I think the co-host carries me, but
Not at all. Not at all.
is there any final thought you'd like to leave with our boundaries today?
Um, honestly, I mean, I just look at them as being healthy. There's nothing wrong with them. And just appreciate those folks who set boundaries and respect folks' boundaries because that's what you would want them to do for you.
Boom, and another mic drop, folks. Another mic drop. Awesome. We appreciate you guys listening. This has been another episode of Cruising with the Coaches, a conversation with Julie and Lee. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Cruising with the Coaches is part of the Live All Good family of podcasts. And until next time, you guys, we have enjoyed you listening, and we look forward to creating more content for you.
See you soon.